Hey, my name is Christine, and I'm an elopement photographer that's been living and working in the Alps since 2019. And in this video guide, I'm going to be walking you through everything that you need to know if you're thinking about getting married or eloping in Switzerland, specifically when it comes to the legalities of it and anything you should know regarding your ceremony. I've been helping couples from all over the world get married in the Alps for quite a few years now, and there's definitely some things I've learned along the way. So if you're wondering about different types of ceremonies, can I even legally get married in Switzerland, all that good stuff, you're in the right place, so let's get into it. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty, you might even be wondering, is it even possible to get married or elope in Switzerland if I'm a foreigner in the first place? And yes, you definitely can. There is nothing stopping you from that as long as you can legally travel to the country. There is some nuance to that. It depends on what type of wedding ceremony you're hoping to have, and that's what this video is really all about. So we're going to be diving into civil marriage rules, religious and church weddings, as well as symbolic ceremonies. For civil marriages, a few key points that you need to know is that civil marriage is generally only possible for residents of Switzerland. Sometimes it is possible that you can get married in Switzerland if you're coming from abroad, but the marriage laws vary from canton to canton, which is essentially like the American equivalent of state. So if you want to legally marry as a foreigner, you can always contact the civil registry of the canton you hope to get married in and get more information from them. Generally though, the paperwork to get legally married takes a few months to complete, and it does require in-person appointments as well. And if you're having a civil wedding, it needs to take place at a legally recognized civil registry office. And while sometimes there are legal civil registries that are up in the mountains, overall you're going to have a lot more restrictions on where you can have the ceremony itself. The great news is, if you're an LGBTQ couple, you can definitely get married in Switzerland. If you are thinking of having a legal ceremony in Switzerland, some of the required legal documents you need include your passports, birth certificates, certificate of no impediment, certificate of single status, proof of residency, a marriage application, declaration regarding immigration, your first marriage certificate and final divorce papers if you were previously married, and also a death certificate of your previous spouse if you were widowed. All these documents need to be translated into one of Switzerland's official languages, including German, French, or Italian. Now, if you're thinking of having a religious wedding in Switzerland or a church wedding, here's some other things to keep in mind. So while you can have a religious wedding ceremony led by a celebrant or family member, getting married within a church itself is a more time-consuming, complicated process. Official religious ceremonies can only take place after the legal ceremony, whether that was in Switzerland or in your home country, and the churches may require documentation of your legal ceremony, and that includes something like proof of baptism or confirmation, if you're Catholic, for example. Unlike in the USA, most churches in Switzerland really don't see themselves as a wedding venue. This means that couples coming from abroad are less likely to get approval to marry within the church as they aren't a part of that parish or church community. So also keep that in mind. You can't just see a pretty church and say, I want to get married there, and they're going to give you that permission. Because of these reasons and these hoops that you typically have to jump through, I typically recommend to every single couple that you consider a symbolic ceremony. Symbolic ceremonies, they're a great way to weave in any religious or cultural elements that matter to you without the headache of a traditional church wedding. And so now we're going to dive more into that and everything you'd want to know about symbolic wedding ceremonies, because they are the best and the options are limitless. So any couple that can legally travel to their chosen destination can have a symbolic ceremony. There's almost no restrictions on where you get married beyond considerations for private property and any sort of environmental closures. And symbolic ceremonies are stress-free and a private way to get married. Most couples who symbolically marry do the legal paperwork at home in their home country before or after their elopement. And I've had so many couples tell me that exchanging vows in private was what made the marriage feel real, and it was just as meaningful. So don't let a symbolic ceremony put you off as it's not the legal day. I've had so many people tell me the wedding day that they celebrated abroad, that was when it really all came together and felt real. So one of the biggest questions I get as an elopement photographer is, what does a symbolic ceremony even look like? So I want to dive into that, give you some ideas of just a general overview. I'm definitely considering making another video all about symbolic ceremonies themselves, just because I think people have so many questions and it's hard to envision without actually experiencing it. So I'm hoping I could do that in a way that would paint you a broader picture of that. But some key details of typically what a symbolic ceremony looks like is symbolic ceremonies can be either just you and your partner privately exchanging handwritten vows, or it can be a ceremony that's led by a family member, a friend, or a hired celebrant. And a celebrant out here is basically like an officiant in the US. And except for out here, you don't need anyone to officiate your ceremony. People always wonder, do I need to hire a celebrant? How important is that? Here's some stats for you. About 10 to 15% of our couples hire a celebrant or officiant to lead their ceremony. About another 10 to 15% enlist a family member or friend to lead their ceremony. And then the vast majority, the remainder there, they actually typically exchange handwritten vows and exchange rings privately during their elopement, and they don't have anyone else involved. So you can definitely still have a meaningful, connected ceremony without having a lot of logistics or details to worry about there. And what does a symbolic ceremony even look like in the first place? Typically, in my experience, two-person elopement ceremonies are somewhere between like 5 and 15 minutes long. They include exchanging personalized vows, rings. Sometimes we've had couples that have done a ritual together, like a hand fasting ceremony that they practice beforehand, which I always think is really cool. And then the rest of the elopement day is spent exploring and creating awesome new memories, whether through hiking, cool, unique helicopter tours, on the water, like any number of different ways that you can imagine. Just imagine the best day ever and you happen to get married on that day, and that's an elopement day. Celebrant-led ceremonies generally last a bit longer. They're more on the 25 to 40-minute side of things. Generally, that just depends on whether or not there are other guests involved in the ceremony. If you're having a micro wedding, something else really cool that we've seen and that I love is that a lot of our couples who have had a celebrant or family-led ceremony with their guests then opted to privately exchange vows later at a separate location. So there's truly no limits on how you want to celebrate. And if you want to exchange private vows, but you're kind of worried about having an audience there, even if it's a small audience of your family, you definitely can have the best of both worlds, which is another awesome thing about eloping. And just as a kind of fun side story, one of our favorite moments from this past year was a couple, they brought cowbells to ring after exchanging their rings, which was, I'm saying ring way too much, but it was the ultimate way to ring in a new chapter and start in the mountains. I absolutely loved it, and it was so fun. Just great personal touch there. So I hope this video helped give you some ideas about what your wedding abroad can look like regarding the ceremony and also the legalities around it. If you're looking for more one-on-one help, you can always get in touch via the link in the description of this video. Otherwise, we have plenty of free planning resources that you can find on our website, as well as we're trying to upload here to our YouTube. So we're so excited to help you out, and I'm hoping that you have an awesome time as you start dreaming up your own elopement in the Alps or the Dolomites.